Easy to forget.
You know, when you spend 7 or 8 hours a day on these things, you probably forget. So, okay. So, let's see here. For those of you that don't know who I am, Sue Petterson, I'm from the Michigan District, and I am the Leadership Education Chair for Michigan. And what started this program, so to say, was that we realized when we all got the stay-at-home mandate that our Lieutenant Governor training was coming up, as well as our Club Leadership Education training coming up. And we're like, okay, we know we're not gonna be able to meet in person for a lot of that stuff. So why don't, we've got to figure out a different way to provide this information to our leaders. After a couple conversations with some people from around Kiwanis in Michigan, we opened up this program thinking that this would be a program that we would start out with Michigan people. Eventually, after the first one, we realized that there were about 50-50 Michigan people and 50% people from around the rest of the world. So we just continued to open it up. As I mentioned earlier, the coronavirus will have an impact, and it has had an impact on a lot of our clubs. And we'll continue to have that impact. But the big question has always been, will there be an international convention? And we learned tonight that the International Board will be making that decision at their board meeting in April. So as soon as we get that information, we will get that out to everyone. And I know Kiwanis International will as well. And if you have any specific questions about the convention, feel free to put them in the chat and we can answer them as well.
I did see, Sue, today that there was a note on there that they were extending the early bird registration price past the 10th.
Okay, great. So early bird registration is past April 10th.
I think it goes through May 22nd, which was the cutoff to move up to the more or less registering on-site price.
Yeah, but I think a lot of people are waiting to see what's going to happen before they register, which is
right.
Probably.
Well, and the one thing for everyone to know is, should the convention be canceled, everyone's full registration will be returned. So, you know, you can either wait till the 22nd or you can, you know, move forward and register now, but they will be returning all of our registrations once that decision has been made. So, and I know there's been a lot of, you know, I know in Michigan, they just shut the schools down for the rest of the school year. So a lot of that stuff is still happening. So we'll have to see what's going on. So April 22nd is when the board meets, is when the next board meeting is. I'm sure there's a few days around that. I don't know the exact dates, but we'll find out. I'll look that up while we're sitting here. So today's presenters, last week we started on a little bit on membership boosts, because this is now an opportunity for us, since we're home, that we could start working on some of the planning and things that we can do. So when our clubs come back online and we start meeting in public or in person again, what we can do. So Larry Memmer, who is the immediate past governor of the Michigan District, has managed the membership for Michigan for the last couple of years, and is very active on a lot of new club builds and on the membership teams that have been around with Kiwanis International the last couple of years. So Larry is with us tonight. And then Brad Boyd, who many of you know is one of our area directors. And Brad is also involved in membership. So between the two of them this evening, and I think they have some other special guests that are going to bounce in and out this evening, they're going to lead us through a membership boost and some planning, which is exciting, so that we can get this information going right off the bat and spend some time working on it now. So with that, I will turn it over to Brad and Larry, and you just need to say, move the screen.
Okay. Well, thanks everybody for joining. One of the things that I've been thinking about recently, since this epidemic started, is that there's lots of things that we could do. Pre-work is one of the most important things we do when we either do a boost for a current club, existing club, or when we start to work on new club openings. The pre-work is the backbone of making a success out of either of those events. So we're going to concentrate more on just how you do that with your existing clubs and what you can be doing. And again, planning is probably the most important thing, and a lot of that can be done now. And I tell you all know, if you looked at if any of you have looked at the membership numbers for March that just came out, in a lot of cases it's pretty dismal. So the idea is that we're going to have to hit this thing running hard once we're able to go out and meet and work with our clubs one-on-ones or with their boards or putting together programs. So in the meantime, we can do some things that can get us leading us to that and do some planning. So go ahead. One of the first things that when we talk about doing a boost is we need to have somebody from, as an individual member or somebody from a club or your club that wants to coordinate this. Now, doesn't necessarily have to be the membership chair, but it has to be somebody from the club that knows and wants to increase your membership, which we all want to do. And then we're going to talk about different ways to do that, and also talk about what you can be doing with your own club right now to look at your roster and a few other things. So go ahead. Club strengthening, you can go to this to get this off the Kiwanis International website, which has all the different roles that would take part of any club strengthening. You know, coaching, you can do your education, you can do certifications. I don't know, Brad, is that all up and running now?
Yes.
Is that new, or is that just the data that we had before?
In terms of club strengthening and club opening, there are new modules, new information that's up there.
Okay. So any of you that want to get updated on the club coaching, education, and certifications, and the quick start guide to coaching with existing clubs, you can go to the website and get that information. Go ahead. Logistics. Club membership bills followed by one super membership event. In other words, what I've seen successfully done, not only here in Michigan, but in other districts, is that if you do a boost, which is just what it says, boost your club to get more members involved with your club, be able to do more service, and to become more active in your community. You need to pick a time and a date. We usually try to do like a couple days. We do all the pre-work with the existing club that wants to increase their membership. And then we pick a date and time, usually spend 2 days in the field with the club and its members, because there has to be a commitment from the club that it wants to increase their membership. So we look at that, and then probably after we've all done this and looked at that, then we would need to pick an event to have an actual club opening where you would introduce the new clubs and the new members, and also install them as a new member to your club. And you want to make sure you don't just strictly look at your club. Sometimes we've been successful in having this done with a couple clubs in the area where you can work together and do one as a combination for both clubs. So that's something you can literally look at. The objective is to gather information to help the club better serve its members, and the club can better serve its members. Certainly the purpose is to clarify what members expect from Kiwanis service by surveying and benchmarking the club's success. In other words, you need to determine out what your goals are going to be, what your membership is now, how much you want to increase it, and exactly how are you going to go about doing that. So go ahead, Sid. And of course, the most important thing is to improve the club experience based on members' input. So I think one of the slides next is to look at your numbers. The trend for the past 3 years is what we use to calculate what kind of expectations we would have going forward. Kind of gives you a history of what you've done the last 3 years. We even have it up to 5 years. I know when we have our meetings, International can supply us with what our trends have been for the last 3 or 5 years. And then we need to look at our current membership, what we expect the attrition to be, and set our 3-year plan. Now, you got to be thinking forward. And I know it's nice to just think about what's happening today, but a good successful club will have a plan that looks at not only this year, but the next couple of years of where you want to be. Where do you see your club's going to be in 3 years? And try to put together some plans. I know we do some planning, and I'm sure all clubs should be doing planning as expectations, what's going to happen in the years to come. So that's something that's important. So the biggest thing is to just look at your current members on your roster. What kind of growth do you want, and the minimum number of members you would like to add. Now, one of these things you can do is to look at your roster, review your roster. Now, we've preached and preached for years that we need to clean our rosters up and make sure our club members are active before the end of the year. And that's so important because there's a tradition with Kiwanis, so we do everything at the last minute. So that includes cleaning up rosters. And that's what makes the big hit that happens in August and September. So, I mean, we preach this. Every district, I'm sure, preaches the fact that they need to keep their roster active and then reach out to those members who have not been active and ask them why and figure out what they need to do to bring them back into the fold. So it's a minimum. So you have to look at what you want to, where you want to end up at the end of the year. And there's some formulas out there that your membership chair, district membership chair can tell you. It looks at the last 3 years. Kiwanis International puts together this plan, which takes the last 3 years and then develops a plan that says, if you want to be positive by the end of the year, this is how many members you should be adding each month, and a total for the year. And it kind of gives you a goal, if you will, of where you should be and where you would like to be able to be positive, not only from a district standpoint, but also from a individual club standpoint. So those things that I just talked about, look at the roster, determine, and then we need to look at and determine what kind of members should we invite to strengthen your representation of the community. And does your club represent the demographics of your community? And then this is the community assessment, which certainly should be done. It's good if you do one every year or every couple years to just look to see what your club's doing. Is it meeting the needs of your community? Is it meeting the expectations? Do you need to kind of look at your projects and say, well, that's not really what we really want to do or need to do in our community? There's other things that we can do. You need to, and there is a form that you can do a community assessment that you can put out there, and you can do an analysis of it and kind of look at your community and then try to decide whether you need to make some changes to make it more to the timing that we're talking about. Sometimes we get caught up in doing projects that for year after year after year just because we've done it. And maybe that's not the right thing. Maybe there's other things in your community that we should be looking at. All this kind of comes together as we turn to look at how are we going to increase our memberships in our existing clubs. Okay, go ahead. Okay, I was going to ask Kathleen, if you can talk about how you develop. You've been doing this for years.
I have. Too many.
Of how to put together a prospect list and how you make your appointments. So if you can just share a little bit of what your experience has been and how you go about putting together prospect lists, and a little bit about how you make your calls, what's important in making a call to set up an appointment.
Absolutely. And so I do this not only for my district, but I've done it for a number of districts because people are inherently afraid to put together lists and make phone calls. So the prospect lists, I feel, are easy to put together, but you have to be pretty tech savvy to do them. Unless you have access to a chamber roster would be very helpful. So some of the things that you want to get in your prospect list are corporations, so local corporations. It's really hard to get into some of the bigger ones, but if you have a local corporation that's well known in your community, a lot of times you can go through HR or marketing and get somebody to join from that group. And we do have corporate membership information. I won't go into detail on that because we have too short a period of time, but we do have corporate membership brochures that you can request from Kiwanis International. Again, I referenced the Chamber of Commerce list, which you see up there, and that's a listing of the members of the chamber. Now, again, some chamber lists are embedded and it's a little hard to get into, but I would say that there's a number of people on this call. I think Patty's on here, Katrina, Larry, Brad. There's a number of us on this call that kind of know how to go in through the back door to get those lists of businesses. And you might have to do a little work to do that. So I'll share my email address when I'm finished. And if you want to reach out and get more information, I can share that with you. Military, we have an agreement with the Army that is absolutely phenomenal, where if you're opening a new club and you are able to get an Army recruiter, not anybody from the Army, not National Guard, it's got to be an Army recruiter from an Army recruiting office in your area to join. It's an automatic free membership, and it's because of an agreement we have with the Army. And so we've been extremely successful with that. There's actually also a document that outlines the Army recruiting agreement that's helpful. Former JCs or optimists. I know I actually have friends that are optimists that are in Kiwanis, and one in particular is, and former JCs, of course, that's a natural progression because JC has a partnership with us. Yellow pages of a phone book, if you could actually locate a phone book, are a good place to find them. Former members, you know, a lot of times people leave a club for a reason and their circumstances change. And so if you reach out to former members, you might be able to get them to rejoin, or it could be that they had a problem with leadership at a time, or you don't know what was going on in their past at the time they left the club. So it's good to reach out to them. Club meeting speakers. If any of you are not asking your speakers to come to another meeting or come join your club after they do a presentation, then you're missing out. Former Circle K and Key Club members, there's a real bonus because they get their dues paid with the exception of insurance and magazine, and some districts actually waive that. They are great because if they have not joined a Kiwanis Club in the past, they get 2 years of free membership. And parents of your Builders Club and your Key Club and your Circle K and your Action Clubs, you know, reach out to them as well and find out if they're interested. So there are some other places that I use that again are more detailed, and you have to be a little bit more technical to use, but I would be glad to share this information a little more. And there's a site called Alignable. And I know if Barb Thompson is in this call, Barb Thompson and I both use Alignable. US Business Directory and Hometown Locator. And those are websites. You kind of have to learn how to navigate them to get them to work for you. And sometimes you have to really, really go through the leads on there because a lot of them are not legitimate, but they're great ways to be able to populate a Google Doc. So in the past, when we were opening new clubs, we were putting Google Docs together with lists, huge prospect lists. And that's basically how we got a lot of our prospects. Using example was for the Georgia district last year, we had some prospect lists and some of them were probably had less, let's just say less businesses on them that we needed. And so a number of us went in and used a number of those tools, and that's how we were able to populate those lists. Larry, you wanted me to go into how to make a phone call?
Well, here, I got a couple questions for you that came up on the chat. Somebody's asking, what is Optimus and JCs?
They're other service organizations. So if you look them up online, you can find out more information about them. JCs has been around for a very long time, and we have a partnership with them.
And they top out at age 40.
Correct.
So you can get relationships with your JC, invite them to your meetings. And and they're just about like us, so they would make great members.
And
And
with
then,
the go ahead. Like with the JC program, they, because by the age of 40, they, are no longer a member of their organization. They have a different organization for some of them. The one thing that's interesting and it's good about them is by the time they reach 40, if you want to be the global president, you have to do it by the time you're 40. So they're very big on leadership and very big on education. So those members are very well prepared when they come to our clubs. We had one of their global presidents past presidents is a member of my club. And within 3 years, he stepped in to be the president of our club. And it was like he had been in our club for 40 years. So there's an opportunity to do that. So,
and another great place to look that I actually learned from somebody else a few years ago is to go to the superintendent of schools and find out which teachers are retiring at the end of the year, because you could reach out to them. Maybe they couldn't join a Kiwanis club because you met during the day, but now that they're retired and obviously their focus has been on children, so that they may be interested as well. So in answering questions about making a phone call, it's much easier to get someone to join Kiwanis if you are doing a membership boost or if you are opening a new club, if you can set up a number of appointments ahead of time. If the person knows that you are going to be coming to visit them, they will more likely set aside time than when you just drop in on them and you interrupt their day. So normally we actually have some scripts that we can share on how to set up presentations, how to set up phone calls, or how to talk to people. But basically you just say something to the extent of, my name is Kathleen Moylan. I'm with the Pacific Northwest District of Kiwanis, and we are opening up a brand new club in, and Greg Wigwich is on the phone, and I should ask Greg which site I should use, but I'm going to use Lake Hills for lack of better. And you could say something like, have you heard of Kiwanis? And if they say no, you can give them just a very brief overview of what we do, basically outlining that we work with kids. We're really all about kids. And if they say yes, a lot of times they'll add something to you. But tell them that, well, we're talking to community leaders and business owners in the community. And I saw Sue's post, yes, that you could do, I mentioned that when you're doing a membership boost or on a new club, is make those phone calls ahead of time. But you can say we're opening a club in the community and we're talking to business leaders, and we kind of like to get your perspective of what the needs are in the community. So don't make it all like, well, we want to come talk to you, we want you to come join, because you want to be able to share the wonderful things about Kiwanis. You want to be able to share what the opportunities are with Kiwanis versus just going in there and saying, okay, well, here's an application, I want you to join. You want to make them feel like this is an organization they really want to join. And if you talk on the phone with them and when you speak with them in person, if you speak from your heart, you're going to get a much better response than if you try to fabricate or try to force something upon them.
right.
Do you want to add anything to that?
Another comment was that on chambers, you should, if you don't belong to a chamber, you should belong to a chamber, because they're a great resource. Not only will you get the book of their members, but they will put out information about your club. You can get postings about your club with them. They'll send out mass mailings about what's going on with your club and what activities you're doing. So if you're not, and usually there's a community membership that's usually a lot less than the normal.
Kind of a nonprofit membership of some sort, yeah. Because I'll tell you, chamber memberships on the West Coast are pretty high.
Yeah.
So we haven't been as successful with chambers on the West Coast as I was like in Ohio.
Yeah.
Speaking opportunities too, a lot of chambers will allow you to get before their membership. They have meetings on a monthly basis, or maybe a social hour or something like that you can sponsor.
Yeah.
That's correct. And they will actually, even if you don't join them yet, if you tell them that we would encourage this club to join the chamber as soon as we're organized, if you don't have the money up front to join them right now, if you tell them that, a lot of times they'll boost out your information on, they have, all kinds of different mailings, and they'll actually do that for you most of the time.
Right.
So chambers at the best are usually pretty cooperative, unless you have a very somebody who's very strong about another service organization they belong to, and sometimes that happens, and you just gotta have to work around that. But chamber lists are a great source of businesses. They're a great source.
Okay, let's move on to.
Yep. Kathleen, if you would put your email address in the chat, that would be great. Thank you.
I guess now, can you switch over to Brian's, the 3 slides for
I
Brian?
can. Give me 2 seconds. I have to bring his up.
I've got it up.
There we go.
Great. Can everybody see that? Start up?
Yep.
Okay. Well, thanks for allowing me to sub tonight. I started out the morning being a sorry substitute for the Northwest Indy Club. I'm Lieutenant Governor this year, and they called me 2 days ago and said their speaker had to back out. And then tonight I'm sorry substitute for Brian Tenslinger, but I'll try to at least convey a couple ideas. In addition, you know, what I've noticed through, I think now I'm up to about 18 club meetings I've been able to get onto. So that's one of the great things with the coronavirus quarantine, is that it's very easy to access district board meetings, club board meetings, and regular club meetings. But the one thing that I've noticed, I had 3 today, all of them talk about service because we're do-gooders at heart, and they all do a little bit of information sharing and maybe getting to know one another better, which is great during this hiatus. But none of them are really talking about this as a great opportunity while things have slowed down just a little bit during this lull to really work on membership, so that once the veil is lifted, we can really hit the ground running in terms of boosting our membership numbers. So I just wanted to share 3 quick ideas that I think might be a good place to start. Actually, I'll add a 4th because I don't think we've mentioned that this lull in activity is a great time to do the annual membership satisfaction survey. So if your clubs have not done that, I would encourage them to do so. And but I wanted to start out and say, really, I think that just scrubbing the roster analysis, taking a look at that. And so quite often, I think it's helpful if you have the club membership committee and or the board taking a look at that roster analysis. All it is a listing of all sorts of occupations, professions on there. And so you can go through and just sort of check mark off, yeah, we have a realtor, we have an attorney, we have a banker, but hey, maybe we're missing someone from the clergy. It seems like a lot of our clubs have sort of let that slip in recent years. Or maybe we need somebody from, you know, some other field and everything. And then at that point, then you can really identify those professions that are sort of missing in action. And then I would suggest then at the next regular club meeting, since you'll have a larger attendance base, then go through that roster analysis and share with the whole membership that's on the call, on the Zoom or the GoToMeeting call, share those professions and ask people to think of 2 or 3 people in those professions that you might be able to reach. And then develop that sort of spreadsheet and everything to fill those holes. And then you'll want to track down contact information. Sometimes the members who suggest those folks can provide that. Sometimes you might have to go out and do some Google searches on those companies to find how to reach them, particularly if you want to send out an invitation via email. That's one thing that chamber lists and others tend to leave that off because of privacy reasons. So you might have to do some Google searching. It's a great time to involve your SLP key clubbers or CKI kids since they're out of school right now. They might be able to help you with that. And then you want to invite those prospective members to join your virtual club meeting and assist with any service projects that you are either doing collectively as a club or individuals within the confines of your own home or neighborhood during this quarantine period. And I've found one of the greatest tools is to use LinkedIn. I was just on a call or a demo actually earlier this week with a software startup called Connected that utilizes LinkedIn quite a bit. And they shared with me that during this coronavirus crisis, the traffic on LinkedIn has moved up 45%. Obviously, a lot of people have lost jobs or are concerned about jobs or furloughed or whatever. So LinkedIn is just buzzing with activity. I found even for myself, some of the folks that I've met that maybe are a little bit more the movers and shakers that probably wouldn't bother linking in with me, they're a little bit bored and they're now looking at LinkedIn, and I've gotten those requests back to link in with them. But what I found is helpful is once you find out that one of these prospective members can join your virtual club meeting or a service project, link in with them and just say, hey, I heard you're going to be able to join us for our Zoom meeting this coming Thursday, and I just wanted to link in with you. And then maybe after the meeting, ask your president or someone from the board to link in with them as well, because Kiwanians have vast networking capabilities and connections out there that really can help people in terms of both their professional life, but even more importantly, in terms of civic life, particularly for younger people that want to get on nonprofit boards or committees, those types of things. LinkedIn can really be a big boon to that as well. So that's one idea that really talks about scrubbing the roster analysis and making full use of this time to really do a better job of identifying where there are opportunities to bring in members from other professions that perhaps are missing in your current club. The second idea that I wanted to sort of throw out there is one that I observed when the 4 years I was with the Downtown Indie Club, and I found that every month I supplied them with the board with a list of those folks that hadn't paid their dues yet, and it fell on deaf ears until July, August, sometimes it was September, and then we'd mad scramble, and every board member would take 6 names, and maybe they could get through to people, or maybe they couldn't, and that just doesn't cut it. And that's part of why we have this huge September surprise. So just imagine all of the Kiwaniverse, if every club could salvage 1 member at year end, how much better our membership numbers would be then. And so what you really want to do is to take a look now, and I quite often suggest during Lieutenant Governor trainings that we look at after the holiday period to take a look and develop a naughty and nice list. Who are the people in your club who are those dedicated Kiwanians that paid by November 1st or maybe through the first quarter? Obviously, there are some people that like to just drag things out until year end, but this is really a time for clubs to be looking at who's on that naughty list and put them on a watchful waiting list or a list that you really want to start re-engaging those folks. And particularly now at this time, this juncture, we have a great opportunity because there are more people confined at home, and perhaps some of those people that are way too busy to come to our physical club meetings can maybe dial up out of the convenience of their home and just wearing shorts, and they can get on and rediscover the joy that comes from Kiwanis Fellowship. So here I would ask the club treasurer to supply you with a list of members who haven't paid dues. And then I'd probably also include the club secretaries, because they usually track the attendance and know who hasn't darkened your doors for a while. And then place those names on the spreadsheet, research which member sponsored them. That's the key. Having a board member that perhaps calls someone that hasn't been to a club meeting for 6 months or even longer does nothing, because it's real easy to turn them down or say, I feel guilty, so I'm gonna quit Kiwanis, or I don't have time for it, or it costs too much, I'm not getting my money's worth out of it, whatever excuse they have. But if Sue brought me into Kiwanis and she called me and said, hey, you know, we were just meeting and I saw your name on a list that perhaps you're waiting till year end to pay your dues, and we just want to, you know, let you know that we're now doing meetings virtually over Zoom and all these types of things. It'd be a lot harder for me to turn down Sue, who brought me into Kiwanis, than somebody that's just Joe or Jane Doe from the club board. So utilize those people who sponsor. That's a real easy list to obtain. And then ask those sponsors to personally call those delinquent dues payers. I know some of us affectionately call them deadbeat dues payers, but delinquent sounds a little bit nicer, tardy dues payers, and urge them to come in and join with you. And then once you've got them re-engaged, then ask their sponsor to remind them that perhaps they need to get their dues in as well and everything. And again, don't wait until August or September, and don't put that on to the club board members to make this happen, because as much as we all have membership committees, I hope every club has one of those. We are all in the membership game. Every member is responsible for bringing in members and keeping members engaged. So that's sort of the second little idea that we threw out here. And then lastly, this is an idea that I've started back with the Downtown Club, because we were really having a challenge. We sponsored 9 SLPs, and I couldn't even get the club president sometimes to go to the club officer induction ceremony for a K Kids group or whatever. Those are the cutest little kids to see get the joy of moving up in office in Kiwanis and everything. And so I finally beat my head against the wall and realized that if I couldn't perhaps bring my members to go out to the SLPs, I needed to bring the SLPs to the club. And so we, even though they have a long list every week of movers and shakers who they love to hear from in terms of outside speakers, I said, just give me 1 week in April at the end of the school year where we can do a Kiwanis celebration of service leadership. And so the key here is, I think it'd be wonderful right now because almost all of the colleges, universities, high schools have shut down for the year, or they're doing studies remotely from Zoom or whatever. And so the kids in those clubs will have a lot more time. Invite them right away if you do have access to their emails or their telephone numbers, or can work with the faculty sponsor or whatever, faculty advisor, to bring those onto your meetings right away. But specifically, this idea is to maybe set a meeting in late April or early May, and it really is more than a meeting, it's an event. And it becomes the Kiwanis celebration of service leadership. And so you set up a panel discussion and have a representative or two from each of those clubs, SLPs that your club sponsors. And then I bring in a local media person, but you could do it with someone from the club who acts as sort of an MC, and just go up and down the line, passing the microphone around and ask the kids, you know, what have they gotten out of the experience? Why did they join Key Club or CKI or K Kids? What did they think of their faculty advisor, the outside Kiwanians that were liaisons to their club? How did they determine what charities of choice in their neighborhood they wanted to support? How did the Kiwanians help them come up with a fundraising campaign? Those types of things. Did their leadership skills improve as a result of this? Did they become less shy? There's all sorts of questions that you can pepper the kids. And obviously, the fact that I left to move up to the big house about 6 years ago, they're still carrying it on. They must have seen in our club that there was a real value in hearing directly from the kids, because as we all know, they're our future, and there's nothing better than hearing from the kids in our SLP programs. And so devote a meeting and call it a special event, and particularly at that point in time, then think through inviting all of your faculty advisors, ask the principal, because they're probably available now, even the school superintendent, maybe people that are on the PTA, any of those groups. I think Kathleen mentioned retired teachers, any of those folks to come in, as well as those guests that you've sort of harvested a list from your roster analysis, and ask them to come in for this special event to hear a Kiwanis celebration of service leadership of what we've done with these kids to really turn them into becoming junior philanthropists and everything. So that, by and large, is what I wanted to pitch as far as some ideas that we could do to really generate some excitement for membership during this coronavirus hiatus.
Hey, all right, thanks, Brad. I appreciate your joining us and appreciate your comments. Certainly all good things. So Sue, can we go back and we'll finish up a couple, 3 slides, and then we'll be done. I was just following while Brad was talking the chat room, and there's a lot of good comments, things that we could talk about different ideas everybody has, but there's a lot of good comments that came out of that chat room of things that people would suggest or that are doing, or those different people that they could reach out to as potential members, work with your police and fire department, those types of places. During this time, you can take them some food or talk to them about what Kiwanis is. There's a lot of opportunities now that we can do when we're under this no social distancing that we're under now in every state. So anyway, just to kind of go to the end, ways to connect, we've talked about these go to the go-to meeting and the Zoom. I think everybody's either using one or they get good. One of those.
On Zoom, I was on a webinar today with Zoom, and they have opened up Zoom free. There's no time limit currently on Zoom meetings right now. So they've opened that up partly because of the education component, but that's open at this point. Then the
Right.
state didn't quite know when it was going to
It
change.
pops up when you do it. I know Nancy was doing one, and it pops up and says that you're once you reach the 40 minutes, they said it's unlimited now. So that's what happens on that. So, a couple things that you need to do after you've have some new members that you're going to join. You got to do some monitoring these new members. You know, you got to remember when they come, you bring them to a meeting. You say hello to them, you greet other attendants, you introduce them to other people in your club, sit together. If most clubs have an orientation for new members, to make sure you're going with them to that, so you can add some things and understand their questions if they have questions about what the club is doing and some of the aspects of it. And also, I think we have a tendency to inductions into your club of doing it's just kind of a mundane, you're a new member, here's your pin. We need to make them more exciting. We need to make them something that they will really remember that they belong to this club and they joined it, and look what's happening in this club, and I'm excited to be here. So those are things you need to make your events exciting. Have fun. You know, we don't all be serious. We need to have some fun with doing some of these things and some of these events that we have in our own clubs. Some member retention tips. Take new members to a board meeting. And take them to an interclub so they see what other clubs are doing. Make sure you suggest committees that they could be on and get them assigned to a committee so that they feel part of the club. Just keep them coming back. And if they miss a meeting, contact them and ask them why, and instill them to come back to the club, or for some reason they can't club. Don't lose them right front, because if we lose them in the first 3 or 4 weeks, we're going to lose them. So you have to make sure you're staying up with them, staying active with them, and understanding. Fun and interesting meetings. Assign a mentor. Ask them individually to produce a service project. Remind often, show the impact that they have in the community. And certainly one of the most important things we do is to make members feel appreciated. Everybody wants to feel appreciated, and we want to make sure we do that particularly with our new members. So, best practice. Brad's really covered this. The existing clubs haven't paid dues. Is your club meeting virtually? We kind of covered that. I know a lot of the Michigan clubs are meeting virtually. I know our club is meeting every week at a virtual meeting, and we're getting more people. People that were like on Snowbirds are tuning in to see what's going on, and some members that really sometimes don't come to regular meetings. They're coming on to the virtual meeting just because they have time now to become involved. So make sure you're using that. We've talked about the roster analysis. Can't stress that enough. Look at your roster and see who needs to be prodded, clean up your roster, I guess. We all don't want to wait. As I said before, we have a tendency just to not do anything with our rosters till we get to August and September. I mean, I've preached that for years now, and it's just that we just don't get to it. We need to get our secretaries, particularly in our clubs, to look at our members and reach out to them so that we don't lose them when we come to the end of the year. So,
all right. So
that's kind of the short version of how to do it. I'll only end it by one thing that I've done with some clubs is actually just go to a club and sit down with them and talk to them about membership and talk to them about, come up with a plan. We brainstormed and come up with places that we should contact for that club that would be good members, and then getting a plan together how we're going to reach out to them, assign them to a club member to go to visit or to contact with in this time. So make sure you're doing those things. Invite potential new members to your virtual meetings. It's not a time when we can just say, well, it's just we're not meeting, we're not going to do these things. We need to do them more now than ever, so that when we get done with this, we come out stronger than ever, and that we can increase our membership when we do get out of this, and then we can become a stronger club, a stronger organization. So
Thank you, Larry. Thank you, Kathleen. Thank you, Brad. We have a couple questions that I just want to respond to. Somebody asked about the time of your meeting. I'd say the majority of clubs that I know of are meeting at the same time as their regular meeting. I know other clubs that have changed them to a different time to think that, that would be more conducive for a lot of their members. So it's really up to your club to decide on that. The barrier for older clubs, one of the things that you can do if they don't feel comfortable using a computer or feel comfortable, getting online, is that with Zoom and many of the other sources, they can call in. They won't see your, see people or see your presentation or whatever, but they can call in and still listen and still participate in the call on the phone. So that's one of the things we've been working with some of our members I know here is, just call in, get comfortable with that. They're more likely to say something on being on the call. So, and I will again check on the Zoom thing. I was just on that call today, so I want to make sure that if there's a different link, I'll go back to my notes for that and see where we're at there. If you provide me your email address, I will be happy to send you all the information. The other thing that if you direct message me on Facebook, I can do that as well. I will get everything out to you. And then finally, next Thursday, April 9th at 8 o'clock Eastern Standard Time, Sean Spike Smith will be here from the Kiwanis Club of Sheridan. He's a third generation Kiwanian, and he is going to talk about the early history of pride in America and how we can make our clubs more inclusive and more diverse. So he will be with us next week. I'm going to see if I can unmute him really quickly and see if he has anything, if he's still on, if he didn't leave us already, if he has anything he wants to say. Okay, it's not bringing him up. Okay.
I would suggest that if you send out the chat room chats, there's a lot of information out there. Make sure you look through it, and there may be some answers to some questions and some things that we didn't bring up that you would be interested in.
All right, I got Sean's on there now. Sean, you got anything you want to give us a preview of next week?
No, I'm looking forward to talking to everybody. I hope everyone can join. It's something different, something new for Kiwanis. I had the chance to do it at international convention last year, and it's gotten a good response in Pennsylvania. And just a different way of looking at membership for your club, and different ways that you can support a community that we often overlook as Kiwanis. So hope you can join.
Thank you, sir. And if you have any suggestions or ideas for other presentations, or if you have any thoughts of yourself doing one, please let us know. You can send me an email. It's just suepeterson@gmail.com. I'd love to get some of them booked out so that people know what is going to happen over the next couple of weeks. So if you've got any ideas, please share them. We would love to have that information available. We may eventually move to a webinar type setting. I learned about that today on Zoom, and it may make it easier for us in the long run with information and the sharing of our screens and stuff like that. So if that does change before next Tuesday, I'll make sure we put that information up on the web, either on the Michigan website or my personal sites, and then you're welcome to share this with anybody you would like to do that along the way. So any last minute questions? I probably should unmute everybody, right? Okay, I'm unmuting everybody. Any last minute thoughts or questions before we say goodbye? All right, with that, we'll say goodbye. I'll stop the recording.
Good night, everyone.
We'll make that available, and everybody have a great week. We'll see you next Thursday.
See you next Thursday.
Thanks.
Everyone.
Bye.
Thanks.
Bye.
Good night.
Thanks, everybody.
Stay safe.
Can you hear me?